Asking people to sign up for your loyalty program ignores the way every other industry does it, which is, can we get you to make a digital transaction through any of our digital channels? You can automatically embed loyalty enrollment directly in that experience, and consumers are far more likely to participate in a program when it's attached to something that feels convenient to them.
Welcome to Restaurants Reinvented, the podcast for restaurant executives where we go beyond the four walls of the store and talk about industry, trends, strategies, and challenges that the C-suite tackles every day. Your host is Jen Kern, a career marketer across multiple industries and the CMO of QBeyond. Now let's get started.
Hello, everyone. This is Jen Kern, and we are back here at Restaurants Reinvented. I took a little hiatus for a few months over the winter months, and now it is spring and everything's blooming and it's beautiful outside. So I figured let's go on and have a new podcast. So this is my first recording of 2024, and I've got here with me a very special guest who I've heard his name for many years since I've been in the industry and never had a chance to meet him. So this is extra special for all y'all, as we'll say, at first time meeting. And it's Zach Goldstein, who is the founder and CEO at Thanx. Hi, Zach.
Great to be here, Jen. And I have lots of stories of hearing your name. So great to meet you on this podcast too.
Oh, no, I hope they're good.
They're all good. They're all good.
Well, welcome. And the topic today is loyalty. And in our State of Digital, which we released a few months ago for 2024, we do this big survey every December, and we go out to our fast casual and QSR prospects, customers, just the whole target market. And we ask them about 15 questions, and it's usually around digital and technology, what they're prioritizing and what they're investing in, where their challenges are and where their opportunities are. And one of the big findings that was surfaced is what we're dubbing it Loyalty 3.0, because we're hoping that a new loyalty framework will emerge. What we found through the data and through the way that the respondents answered a lot of the questions is there's a very strong feeling that loyalty is broken and that things just aren't working, that from a technology perspective, it's a little expensive, is a little bit of what we heard, and not really getting a lot of innovation or getting a lot back from it. And I'll just preface a few recent things we've seen in the news, such as Duck Donuts saying they're discontinuing using loyalty. They're going to straight SMS text messaging. You have the Shake Shack, who never, ever has used loyalty, which is amazing. It's one of my favorite little brands. And then you have, on the other hand, a Chipotle that's got close to 50% loyalty engagement. So all that aside, I'd like to start out by saying, for today, what do you believe the definition today of loyalty is, and what should it be?
Yeah. Well, I'll actually go even back a little bit.
Okay.
I think
great.
industry-wide, the definition of loyalty became synonymous with discounts. And as a result, loyalty was, in my opinion, appropriately a bad word for a number of years because legacy loyalty programs were very heavy on buy X, get Y, rinse and repeat, and give out a lot of discounts. That was probably loyalty 1.0, if we were to use that language. And it left a bad taste in people's mouth, which is why a lot of brands didn't want to go into loyalty. As digital took over, I think we saw 2.0 emerge, which loyalty went from nice to have to kind of must have, because you need to have knowledge of who your guests are in a digital enabled environment. And you need to be able to retain those guests relative to competitors, of course, but third party as well. And that made loyalty more ubiquitous. I think the challenge is most programs are still very static and rote discount oriented. And that's why people are saying they're broken, because they're not driving value. So let's go to the definition, as you asked. To me, the definition of customer loyalty is not the tool, it's the outcome. It's about driving customer lifetime value. And if you break down customer lifetime value, it's what are people spending, average ticket, what is their visit frequency, and what is their longevity with the brand. How long does it take until they break for one reason or another? A customer loyalty program must impact one or all of those to be delivering value. And I think the challenge is often that it's not doing any of the above, and that most programs aren't even being measured against those metrics correctly.
Okay, so Loyalty 2.0, I guess that's where you feel like we are today, where we're kind of stuck in Loyalty 2.0, which has been around, I'm going to say about 10 years, right? Where everyone probably aggressively went out around 2015, 2016, starting acquiring, loyalty as tech partners. And the rewards and redemption side of thing, I mean, as a guest myself, I believe it's very stale. It's still buy 10, get one free. Some of the
Yep.
favorite places that I've been going to for over 15, 20 years, they still don't know me from, right? They don't know. They just don't know anything about me. I buy 10, I get one free, right? So tell me, in your estimation, what would be a better definition or way forward for loyalty?
Yeah. So whether you call it 3.0, and that's actually the term we use as well, but
Mm.
whether you call it 3.0 or kind of the future of digital, when it comes to driving lifetime value, you need to understand your guest and you need to be able to deliver them messaging that's relevant to them such that you can drive the desired behavior. And done right, that's good for the brand, it's good for the restaurant, and it's good for the guest actually. Because one of the things that we don't talk about enough is consumers are sick and tired of getting untargeted messaging that has no relevance to them. That's part of the problem here. And by the way, e-commerce moved away from that a decade ago. Many e-commerce brands are sending, their marketing campaigns now with thousands of iterations based on your shopping behavior, based on what you've previously done, based on your browsing of the site. And yet most restaurants are still in spray to all, the same message to everyone because it's pizza day or whatever the promo is. Consumers have tuned that out. And so the value of loyalty is the opportunity to personalize. The other thing I'll point out is this is precisely what the third parties are doing. They are very effectively gathering, capturing data and using it to personalize their interactions to drive frequency in particular. The challenge for restaurants is that their approach to driving frequency is very often get you to shop with as many restaurant brands as possible on their platform, because they know that there's a correlation between the more use cases you drive to use a DoorDash or an Uber, the more likely you're to go there as your first place when you're hungry. Greg Creed would call it functional relevance. And so restaurants don't have that opportunity when you have one menu. So how do you create loyalty? You have to give consumers a reason to come back to you. And that means you have to demonstrate that you know them personally.
So is it a restaurant problem? Is it a tech problem? Is it where do we go from here?
It's both. We can start with the tech problem. Legacy loyalty programs are designed to be launched once, and then they're fairly static. The best example of what happens when you run a static marketing program is within loyalty is these brands that have changed their program after 10 years, Dunkin' being a good example, and the consumer uproar. Look, Dunkin' had to make those changes. The program had gotten too expensive, just like you have to change your price. But the reason consumers fought back is because they hadn't changed anything in a decade. So people got really used to it. The program wasn't dynamic. It wasn't evolving. And not only is that a very expensive way to run a loyalty program, it's also not effective, and it doesn't match the demands of millennial and Gen Z audiences who are looking for a much more lively form of interaction with brands. Legacy programs are really set it and forget it. They're designed to be difficult to change. And that's a technology problem at the end of the day.
Mhm.
The brand problem is it comes down to not thinking enough beyond discounts when you define loyalty. When you look outside the restaurant industry, you see that the really big wins have been around places where you can deliver greater perceived value than the actual cost of delivering loyalty. I talk about my loyalty to an airline, and I default to united.com instead of to a online travel agency where I can see all of them because I have loyalty and because I know there's a very small chance I'll get upgraded. That upgrade's worth a lot of money. I never get upgraded. It's worth a lot of perceived value and it costs them very little. Restaurants, I think, have forgotten that it's not easy, but they have tools like that as well. We have seen promotions where brands will offer exclusive access to an LTO, either early or late, as a perk for loyalty. And it shocks people that though we call them hidden menus, access to those hidden menus can sometimes perform just as well or better than a $5 off promotion.
Mm.
We got to rethink how to use loyalty. I'll give you one more example. we've worked with a brand that was spending money on a quarterly menu focus group. So they were updating their menu seasonally, and they were hiring a focus group of guests to come try that at considerable cost. They changed the game. They eliminated the focus group. They used their VIP tier as the focus group. They made it a reward. Now they got feedback from loyal guests who feel more connected to the brand, and they saved money on the focus
Mm-hmm.
group.
Mm-hmm.
The future of loyalty, just needs to be thought more broadly.
Right. So it's brands and tech coming together and really trying to reinvent what we think of as loyalty to be more functionally relevant. I said Greg Creed was on the podcast a couple years ago, actually. Brilliant. And that's really, when you talk about the word relevancy, that's really what folks are looking for, because we live in an age of, I call it the Netflix effect, right? Or the Amazon effect, right? Like, we are used to being highly personalized and being shown very
Yes.
selectively things that we've either purchased in the past or are likely to purchase in the future. And one of my passion areas is, how do we port that over to restaurants? Because nothing's a one-to-one port over from another industry, right? There's going to be nuances. And I even feel like with each brand, like, the few examples I started out giving, each brand is so unique. I feel like each restaurant brand has to define for themselves, before they even go down the path of any sort of technology, what is our best loyalty strategy and definition? And I'll give you one example, which is in the survey. We gave a whole list of questions about loyalty and said, what loyalty strategies are you pursuing? I read those before I issued the survey. I read those questions out to our board members. And Alex Eagle from Freebird said, you're missing one from the answers. He said, put in experience engagement as an answer of a loyalty strategy that you may be pursuing in 2024. And don't you know 45% of the respondents selected that first? That was the number one area, experience engagement, which was a term when I heard, I wasn't really sure what it meant. And he went on to explain that it's creating an experience, sort of like one of the examples you just gave through the focus groups. It's creating an actual experience. It may be offline, it may be online, but it's pulling guests into an experience that makes them feel like they're participating, right? We live in a participation society. They're participating with your brand, and they're getting swag in return. And, they're part of, like, you see a lot of the swags at restaurants now, which I personally love.
Yep.
I'd love me some free swag always. Like, give me a hat, like, I'm all day. What encouraged you to start the company? And then where do you see yourself going in the arena of, or is that an arena you see yourself playing in, experience engagement?
Yeah. So, the experience engagement point is, I think, really interesting.
Yeah.
If you're running one restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
to me, the way you build loyalty is not starting with technology.
Right.
It's, are you delivering an excellent experience that is unique? Are you engaging those customers? Are you making your experience convenient? Because convenience is an unspoken element of loyalty that really matters. You talked about reordering. That is an element of convenience. Then you eventually would get into, what is the actual structure of my marketing and how does loyalty get? So it would become third.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, the order of those does change, though, when you're at scale, because scaling the first two, convenience and experience, without data, without knowing your customers, and without being able to shake their hand and look them in the eye, is much easier and doable with technology, in a way that it's a lot of guessing without the technologies. And you asked about kind of the origin of things. That was ultimately part of the vision here, is seeing other industries have done this. They've used technology as an enabler for their core experience. They view it as a revenue center, not a cost center. And I think one of the challenges that the restaurant industry regularly faces is views technology as a cost center. That is a very dangerous mistake, because it often results in checking the box on technology, not actually driving results for the business. And look, we've seen this over the last 5 years or so. Those that have outperformed, at least among public markets, those that have outperformed the restaurant industry index, the one thing consistent about all of them is that they have invested in technology, digital and guest experiences, way more, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. Most of the industry was, aghast at some of those decisions. They
Right.
are paying off. So that was but what we set out to do. One of the things we saw, however, is that sophisticated technology often came through bespoke technology. It came through an agency route. It came through building from scratch. I have a personal opinion that restaurants to try to be great experiential companies, great food, and great technology companies are biting off a lot. And
Yeah.
while we're seeing a couple who have excellent access to capital and are trying to invest in technology as a core advantage, most need partners to do that. And those
Mm-hmm.
partners need to be the driver of innovation. And so that's what we've set out to do. The last thing I'd say is, that the digital evolution for restaurants is still happening, but led to the IPOs of several of those key partners, Olo and Toast and DoorDash, et cetera. I think that wave is ready for the next version of those. And that was the Shopify innovation for restaurants. The how do you engage your guests? How do you know about your guests? And how do you personalize those interactions when they're not within the four walls? That
Mm-hmm.
era is to come, and we expect to play a very key role in helping restaurants operate the way other industries do with data.
Awesome. So you mentioned airlines. Would you say that is the most comparable example, or where do we start with a potential example of another industry that could work, or examples that could work for restaurants today as they make the, what I would say, baby steps into like a data first approach towards loyalty?
I think it's got to be across the board. I think
Mm-hmm.
we have to take the best practices from the more mature categories that have used
Mm-hmm.
loyalty. And so, what ultimately helped hotels claw back from the online travel agency challenge, where they were giving huge amounts of margin away to the Expedias of the world, were
Mm-hmm.
book direct campaigns. One of the things that I often remind people is it used to be that you could earn loyalty at Marriott or Hyatt, no matter where you booked, and they would treat you well. Today, if you book direct, they really give you an excellent experience. And if you book through a third party, they don't treat you very well. And this is a hard realization for the restaurant industry because, we've all followed the Danny Meyer school of you got to treat every single guest like they're the most important guest. Unfortunately, that's really hard to do at massive scale. And sometimes you actually have to look at, I have to treat my 20% of guests that are driving my 80% of revenue differently. And when we make that switch, it actually is a big business driver. I'd say the second area is we see in financial services loyalty, the option of dynamism and choice. You log into your credit card loyalty program, you have a lot of different ways you can use those points. That's because no one of us is exactly the same in the way we use our Chase card or our Amex card. Um, Restaurants need that type of dynamism. And that means more optionality on how to engage with loyalty, more choice, and more variety. It's okay for loyalty programs to change. One of the things that we see is when loyalty programs change, customers become more adapted to that change, which means you're less locked in and it becomes kind of a reinforcing cycle. The dynamism is exciting to customers. They become less fearful of change. You're able to be more adaptive, and that actually reinforces the brand value that consumers perceive.
Right. Those are two really good examples. I mean, between the hotels and I've lived through that. I remember all the, the Expedia craziness and the credit cards. Like those are really good examples of how could restaurants and a lot of the chains we work with, which are quite large, are struggling with this at scale, like you said. And so experience engagement might not be the first thing on the mind. I'm not sure. But 45%, and this survey was fast casual QSR only, by the way, which were because what we define as mid-market and enterprise begins at 25 locations. So there weren't restaurants that took the survey under 25 locations, let's just say it that way. And they were fast casual QSR only. To see that experience engagement was still at the top of the list is quite interesting to me.
Yeah, and I would,
Do you?
as I
Yeah.
said, I would agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would caveat that that's kind of the overbuilt muscle we have of an industry of going to the operations solve for things and
Yeah.
not the technology solve. And so we have to check
Right.
ourselves when we think like, oh, if I just build a excellent operating experience, it will take care of itself. That used to be the case. It's no
Yeah.
longer good enough because everyone's doing that or trying to do it.
Interesting. Do you know anyone doing that you could cite, maybe a customer of yours doing experience engagement well, or a
Well, that's a
brand?
broad question. I think there's a
Yeah.
couple places that I would drive that I see experience and engagement going well. In most cases, I see them as technology enabled. And so recognizing places where you actually can make convenience the core to your experience in QSR and fast
Hmm.
casual, convenience is often one of the best loyalty drivers. So we helped innovate some brands that, coming out of COVID, were trying to change the number of interactions with staff members. That was not even a labor, cost issue. That was just obviously a health safety issue. The idea of adding various ways to engage digitally that are not just off premise, whether that's kiosks, whether that's table side ordering, we've seen some brands really lean into that, and it has an added or pay at the table, and it has an added benefit of way better data capture. So those brands are getting far more digitally enabled. They have stronger CRMs. They can use that to personalize. And we can come back to talking about, if I have lots of
Yeah.
data, how do I use that?
Mhm.
And then the other part of the experience that I think is really cool with a loyalty program, we're all aware of influencers and the impact they're having on how consumers perceive our brand. Yet most restaurants are underutilizing their own influencers who are telling you they're influencers because of what they spend. And so
Yeah.
I know, for instance, Velvet Taco, one of our customers, recently invited their very, very top VIPs on site to spend a couple days with the executive team. They were actually able to
Mhm.
try out some of the upcoming LTOs. They were able to get a view into the strategy. They offered their feedback. Um, yeah, that probably drives those 5 or 10 people back to the restaurant more often, and maybe there's a revenue impact there. But those people are talking about it. They're influencing others with that knowledge. That's part of loyalty too.
Heck
And
yeah. I love that. Yeah. Way to go, Velvet Taco.
for sure.
I love that. And because I was thinking that when you were talking about the focus group, I was like, yeah, what, like some of these brands I've been going to for, like I said, I go to, I'd say there's 5 fast casual type brands, bowls, salads that I frequent, that I've been going to at least 2 or 3 times a month for the past 10 years. Let's just say it that way. And that none of them know who I am. Like, I would absolutely love to be invited to try a new menu item that they're, testing out. Now I know that's hard to like pull off, but is it really? Like, why not? Have me in. I love your food. I want to have a voice. I was thinking about Chick-fil-A after I asked you the question. I was like, I gotta say, they do a pretty good job. I mean, they always come to the top of the list. And you mentioned Danny Meyer. I mean, and they fit his definition of enlightened hospitality.
Yep.
They start with the employees. So the experience in the store is always going to be good. They actually still want you coming in the store, unlike a lot of other brands
Yep.
where a lot of guests feel like they're not wanted in the store. They want you to come in or use our other, 10 other ways of getting our food, on your. I've even been guilty of sitting at a stoplight, and to your point of last order placed, I can really quick open my app, and I don't have a ton of them, but open my app, reorder my last order. And by the time I drive through and pull up to the, either curbside and park in a spot, or I can just go right to the drive-thru and show them my order, it's ready. Like, and I'm like a mile away.
That's
So
100% true. And that's when I talk about
yeah,
convenience. It's why, as a
yeah,
loyalty company, we made the decision at Thanx that we need to also be right in front and center on the user experience around digital. Many
yeah,
brands were investing in a loyalty program, but they were using off the shelf and web ordering experiences that didn't actually use any of that data you were capturing to change. So every single consumer saw the exact same experience. That's a
mhm,
waste of some very valuable customer engagement real estate because while not every consumer orders the same thing, those that do, to see these are your last orders. Would you like to one-click reorder? By the way, you have a promotion eligible on 2 out of 3 of them. Would you like to choose one of those? Okay, great. We've automatically applied your loyalty points. That type of convenience is exactly what drives customers back over and over again.
mhm,
You're at the stoplight. We probably shouldn't order at our stoplight, Jen, but that's okay. You're at the stoplight. You have a quick choice on where do you go with that 20 seconds to put an order. And if one Chick-fil-A perhaps you can get it done, that's loyalty too.
Mhm. I love how you shared with me before the episode that you just became a dad. You're like, Jen, you shouldn't be ordering.
It's
You have
already
embraced
coming.
the role. You
That's
have
right.
embraced the role. Okay, so experience engagement. We talked about that one. 45%. Frictionless sign up was number 2. 39% of respondents said they'd like some frictionless sign up, which frictionless to me, I've told everyone on my team knows, please don't use the word frictionless. I don't know how it ended up in our survey. It did. Like it's overused and under delivered in the restaurant industry. But people want to be able to sign up easier. So I remember I was at a restaurant a year or so ago, and when everyone was trying to get loyalty going, get their apps going, sign up for the apps. And they said to me, right when I was at the checkout, I had my bowl, and they said, hey, if you sign up for our loyalty, you're going to get 10% off your bowl, or maybe it was 20%. I don't quite remember. And so I was like, oh. So I stepped aside. I started downloading it took me probably 8 minutes to download the app, get signed up, get in the thing, get the whole lines like backing up. So they let me, move aside. And maybe I got 10, 20% off. I don't remember, but I've never used that app again since, right? So this is what we're talking about in my mind, frictionless sign up. Like, how do you get people to enroll and sign up for your loyalty faster? What say you?
Okay. So I got a counter take. I think frictionless sign up matters. I think we should always make things easier for consumers. It turns out consumers are looking for where can they get their goal with the least amount of effort. That's really what frictionless comes down to. So yes, we should do that. I actually think it's a red herring though. I think we're focusing on the wrong thing. And so you said a couple other things that I think we could focus on. You never use that app again. It doesn't matter how frictionless the experience was. Are we creating reasons for consumers to continually engage with the brand and the technology? So that's one of the big problems. We often do evaluations of legacy loyalty programs. We find that somewhere between 40 and 60% of consumers who signed up for the loyalty program never got a single tracked purchase in the CRM.
That's
If
high.
you include one tracked purchase, the number is like often 85%. And so this is a failing loyalty program. The problem wasn't getting people signed up. The problem was getting them to use it. Couple things that we can talk about. You got to eliminate friction from the actual participation of a loyalty program. You have to make it not boring and rote so that consumers who are all different find something that they can attach to that excites them, right? And we've talked about the dynamism and the variety. The other thing that I think is a little outdated is asking anyone to sign up for your loyalty program. And yes, I'm the CEO of a loyalty company. Asking people to sign up for your loyalty program ignores the way every other industry does it, which is, can we get you to make a digital transaction through any of our digital channels? And automatically you will be captured through that. And so the best brands are now saying, even though you are in the restaurant today, can you place an order through your phone? Can you place an order through a computer? Can you place an order through a kiosk? And if you can do those things, you can automatically embed loyalty enrollment directly in that experience. And consumers are far more likely to participate in a program when it's attached to something that feels convenient to them, which is that digital purchase. I think there are opportunities if we talk about the at point of sale environment. And frankly, I hope that this is an area that Thanx and Q push the envelope big time. I think there are opportunities that have not even been seen in the restaurant industry to do the exact same thing, to make it so simple to, I'm paying with a piece of credit, with a credit card, with a piece of plastic in most cases that has my name on it. Why do I have to jump through a bunch of other steps to participate and identify myself? That feels like a major miss in the restaurant industry relative to how others are doing it.
Agreed. One thing that we've done with one of our brands is at the place of order, they can say, I totally agree with you, by the way. Like asking, do you want to sign in for loyalty is putting the cart before the horse. Like, I love that. That's a really good, aha for me. But they can sign up with their phone number. So you're placing your order. Instead of downloading the app and doing this, that, and the other thing, you just put their phone number right there on the screen. And you've captured one other element, right? Ostensibly, if they used a credit card or something else. And then you still have to ask, I feel like, at some point, right? You still have to be like, Or do you? I don't know. Do you still have to ask?
So other industries, I think of CVS and Walgreens, have made the
Mm-hmm.
loyalty experience interruptive to the purchase. Quite literally, it
Mm-hmm.
takes over the consumer facing screen and forces you to engage with the loyalty thing. And if you put in
Mm-hmm.
the wrong phone number or the wrong loyalty number, it'll keep trying until you like find the tiny little skip button in the corner. They make it
Yeah.
really hard to not participate in loyalty. I think that represents one of these age old trade offs that restaurants struggle with, which we really can't put friction in our lines when they're super long because it mucks up operations. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to cause pain for the customer. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, it will be difficult to continue to grow traffic and same store sales for restaurants who are not doing data capture. And so we actually have to start challenging the assumption of, is it okay to put more friction in front of the consumer in exchange for, frankly, the longevity of my business? And are we willing to ask our guests to go on that journey with us? That has historically been something that restaurants struggle with, but
Mm-hmm.
we can't keep operating blind. Our marketers can't keep operating blind. And if you don't have the data, you are effectively blind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you guys do that? Do you have the phone number as part of sign up option?
It depends on, so one of the good news with phone
Mhm.
number is people can enter it very quickly. One of the
Yeah.
challenges is it depends on the format. We actually
Mhm.
see that one of the challenges with phone numbers in a table service environment, which I know is different from where you often work,
Mhm.
is that women in particular don't like to give their phone number to a server to go put into the point of sale. And so you end up getting under penetration of the most important demographic when it comes to spending at restaurants.
Mhm.
It works better in a quick serve, fast casual environment, but I wouldn't say it's a panacea, no, because
Mhm.
giving the phone number the first time is easy. Giving it on subsequent times is still friction that requires the prompting if it's not built into your technology.
Mhm. So you alluded to some potential innovation that we could do working together. Can you give us any little ideas, alerts?
Well, one of the things, not to give you a plug, but one of the things that I see is so well aligned with how our companies view the future of the restaurant industry is a data driven environment where the data is yours as a restaurant and you can use it across a number of technologies. And in technology speak, this is an open API ecosystem and the ability
Mhm.
to seamlessly integrate and move that data. I believe that as we see the industry move into that, there'll be more awareness of what's happening in my business. There will be more ability to deliver digital experiences in restaurant and off premise that are personalized for every single guest. And that personalization drives convenience, but also ultimately drives loyalty. And in order to do that, you can't be building bespoke one-off integrations that are not API based. You can't be transferring your data through, old school SFTP file transfers that are delayed by weeks. That's an area that I think we are both trying to innovate and drag restaurants forward. And frankly, drag our partner ecosystem forward to make them jump on board. The other thing that is at the core to our business, and I believe is getting a lot of steam right now, is COVID greatly reduced the penetration of cash transactions. And that means the ability to track purchasing using a payment card can greatly reduce all the effort of understanding who the guest is. Consumers enroll their payment card to Amazon, to Uber. They're used to this in exchange for a faster checkout experience. We're seeing very clear indications that consumers love a easier loyalty experience and don't want to have to think about it every time they go into a restaurant. We do that through the payment card. There's a lot more that not only Thanx and Q, but others can do to take advantage of this ease of use.
Yeah. Well, I know we're both Olo partners as well, and we just announced the Olo Pay partnership. So we're really excited about that too, and that really comes down to data as well. And and interestingly enough, I'm not going to go through every single one of the survey things, but the next one was guest payment variety. 28% answered that. Redemption innovation, which we've touched on a lot, 27%, and automated recognition types, which is one that we're super interested in as well. Has a lot of potential legal ramifications, so maybe not. But I'd love to hear from your standpoint. If I'm a brand, let's say I'm 50, 100 locations. I'm not sure which way to go with my loyalty program. Do I engage with do I not engage with a loyalty tech provider? What do you say to a brand like that who's kind of stuck and not sure which way to proceed?
Yeah, I think loyalty is no longer nice to have. It is a must have, especially when we're talking about QSR and fast casual. And I think, frankly, even in casual dining, it's probably still optional if you are near 100% on reservations and wait list and you're gathering your data through those channels. But for anyone that's not doing that, how do you capture in-restaurant data? The answer is a loyalty program. And we've seen this in other industries. There's not a single hotel or airline or financial services company that doesn't have a loyalty program. It's table stakes. And I think that has arrived for restaurants. Now we have to talk about, it doesn't do any value if your program looks like everyone else's and has nothing to do with the uniqueness of your brand. And how do you find a technology partner or partners to ensure that you are delivering on brand, dynamic loyalty, and measuring what we call the metrics that matter? And that, at the end of the day, one of the things that I pull out my hair is when people quote loyalty programs, they say, well, the spend of my loyalty guests is higher than my non-loyalty guests. That's a selection bias. That's a reason those people opted into loyalty. They were already
Yeah.
spending more with you. The people that don't
Yeah.
come very often aren't going to do it. That's not the way to look at it. What is your capture rate? What percentage of your revenue is attributable to known guests who you can market to? That's why all the public
Yeah.
companies quote that number now. What is the impact you're having, which to me is two things. How successfully are you activating guests, which we measure as your third purchase conversion? How successfully are you moving from first purchase to third purchase? What is your retention among the guests that are activated? What is your retention of those guests, meaning they've made another purchase over the next 6 months? And those can be translated into percentages. They can be looked at by cohort. They can be broken down by other elements of your business. So one of the things that starts getting interesting is, what is my third purchase activation rate based on what location someone went to, based on what they bought? Those are things that are highly predictive and can tell you what's happening operationally in your business, but they can also tell you how to market to those guests, because there are
Right.
different things that you can talk to them about in order to drive that third purchase. And then the last piece, which is way under discussed, we call it the effective discount rate. What is the actual cost of the program? Because one of the mistakes that a lot of brands make is they negotiate tooth and nail on the amount they're paying for the technology, say
Mhm.
$5 here, and they're giving away millions in unnecessary discounts at the same time. The real cost of a loyalty program comes in what you're giving away. And we've seen discount rates for QSR that go as high as 17%. Uh, that's a hidden cost. And so
It's
I had
huge.
a conversation with a large QSR recently that said, our franchisees won't tolerate another dollar in spend on their loyalty technology. Meanwhile, their program was at 16% effective discount rate.
Wow.
That's the wrong way to look at a loyalty program. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's not a really good way to grow. It's hard to grow the
Right.
bottom line when you're giving away that much in discounts, many of which are not necessary.
It did come up in our survey because there was a different question about discounting. Well, the question wasn't about discounting, but one of the answers was, and discounting was like the number 2 strategy. And we were like, wait a minute, are you cannibalizing your margins or what? Like, if that many QSRs and fast casuals are discounting, and it was actually more on the QSR side, like you're saying, and there was third party delivery in there, it's sort of like, no wonder the margins are really thin.
If you don't have the data, that comes from fear, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
scared to lose my traffic. I have to
Hmm.
keep it going. When you
Yeah.
have the data, you can challenge that assumption. So we run
Yeah.
automated cart abandonment campaigns, just like how
Wow.
e-commerce works. So you can turn it
Right.
on and your marketers don't have to do anything. Someone adds something to the cart, fails to convert. We run a cart abandonment campaign. One of the crazy realizations is that for about half the brands, not all, but for about half the brands, we have found that just reaching out to that customer, hey, we missed you at lunch yesterday. Your cart's still waiting for you. No discount, performs exactly the same as here's $5 off.
Wow.
So you just have to challenge these assumptions.
Yeah.
Look, some
Yeah.
brands have created discount heavy consumers, and that $5
Yeah.
off is going to perform better. So
Yeah.
you're going to do it because it's worth it. But
Yeah.
if you don't test, you don't find out. And for the brands that realize we don't have to give a discount at all to get those customers back, they just
Mhm.
save a lot of money. In many cases, it covers
Mhm.
the entire cost of things, actually.
Mhm.
That's the way
Mhm.
that data can help brands move away from discounting.
Yeah, I tell you, this is one of my biggest concerns in the industry is because prices are getting squeezed so much and everything that's going on with labor and economic indicators and inflation. I am concerned about loyalty becoming discounting. I am, particularly in our space. Like, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just not a great model. And I mean, now I do love a freebie. I will say that. I do feel like, again, I'm going to go back to these brands that I keep, I frequent a lot. Like, everyone's like, hey, you want a free brownie?
Yep.
Yeah, I want a free brownie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, something free every once in a while because I spend a lot and I just want to feel like seen almost,
Yep.
right? But the discounting thing, I am concerned about it. I really am because I see the market, like the marketers are asking me about it a lot. Like, who's taking price? How are you taking price? Where are you taking price? Like, we're taking price here. Are you taking price here? You know what I mean? And it's like easy, and I'm not faulting them. I mean,
Yep.
everyone's getting these pressures. Like, it's not just the marketers. Like, everyone's getting these pressures. But I do see a big swing and a lot of discussion around discounting and taking price. Right?
I've been kind of trying to educate the market on a number of things. And then I kind of get painted with a brush of, oh, Zach's the anti third party delivery guy and he's the anti discount guy. And I think those are two absolute. I think there's a role for third party delivery, but I implore restaurants to own your customers through first party because that's the
Yeah.
future of your brand. I think
Yeah.
there's a role for discounts. I describe it as
Yeah.
it's one arrow in your quiver. It's one tool in your toolkit. It
Yeah.
just can't be your whole toolkit. And
Yeah.
so there are strategic uses of discounts that are incredibly effective. And we see it very clearly for driving traffic, and traffic is at a premium right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Mm-hmm.
you're only using discounts, you've got a Bed Bath and Beyond problem. And Bed Bath and Beyond is not where restaurants want to end up.
That's funny.
That is a
Yeah.
cautionary tale.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I remember having all those coupons stuffed in my glove compartment.
When was the last time anyone went to Bed Bath and Beyond without one of those coupons that got mailed to them?
And then I found out you didn't really need them.
That's
They give
exactly
it to
right.
you anyway.
That's exactly right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I would like to hear as we kind of draw to the close here. I mean, not to save the best for last, but I would like to hear you do a little promo about Thanks. Like, how are you doing things differently? What are you doing that's super innovative? Like, give yourself a little plug here. And I have seen you being vocal, here and there on LinkedIn, and I don't think you're annoying at all, by the way. And so I'd love to hear, like, what's Thanks doing?
Yeah, our approach is to deliver restaurants a complete guest engagement solution that drives lifetime value.
Okay.
Loyalty is one of those tools and a really important one for restaurants to get right. Our approach is to make it easier to participate in loyalty programs. And we do a number of deep integrations with both the digital ordering experiences and also have some proprietary technology to track payment card information so that we've eliminated the friction associated with loyalty. The result of that is higher revenue capture rates in your CRM than legacy loyalty programs. The second is move away from reporting on things like your loyalty guests spend more money than your non-loyalty guests and move to those metrics around activation rate and retention. It's too hard to find that in your traditional loyalty program. And if you can't find it, you can't move it. So we show it very clearly. We break it down by cohort. We give automations and marketing campaigns that brands can use to drive a change in that behavior. And that's really important when traffic is at a premium. And then a suite of turnkey tools to make it possible to make a loyalty program less dependent on discounts. One of the reasons I think brands default to discounts is because the loyalty program they're working with is set up to, well, what do you want to offer today? And all the options are discounts, BOGO and dollars off and percent off. You kind of think, well, my only option are to offer that. So we've made it with one click, you can activate a secret menu. With one click, you can create a swag store. With one click, you can make experiential rewards, skip the line and VIP events. These are things that we believe are not a limitation of the imagination of our marketers. Marketers can think of this stuff. They are technology limitations at the end of the day. They're too hard, and most marketers are working with very lean teams. So our thesis is make marketing easier with automations and make it possible to use more different types of tools in your toolkit, marketers will lean into it. And I think we're having a marketer revolution in the restaurant industry right now, as we're seeing
Mhm.
marketers move into the CEO position, as we're seeing lots of innovation. This is the time, but one of the things holding them back has been their technology solutions. And
Mhm.
we seek to change that.
Yeah. Exciting. I like how you ended there with the technology solutions. And I know you're going through the Q certification program right now, and we're so excited because we share so many common core philosophical beliefs, I believe, as companies around, creating that solid foundation for growth for restaurants. And when we talk about a solid foundation for growth, I kind of think of the garden and the soil, and you can weed out the legacy stuff that you no longer need. And we've got the same, we got this root system that's using the same data, the native data. Like we talk about native data here a lot. You probably heard Nico talk about that. Like we create the menu data at the native level. And so when it goes out and comes back, it's not just normalized, it's the same data. And I know that you share a lot of that philosophy with what you alluded to before, like the open API, or, API first, API friendly, however you want to call it, system. And that is really, what I've found is a big opportunity for helping restaurants understand the value of that, because restaurants aren't technologists. They might have a CTO or a head of tech, but I think helping them understand the value of these things, because it gets very complicated very quickly. And we do share a lot of the same philosophical beliefs there. And like you said, like getting the data, like how can you create that Amazon and Netflix like approach if you don't know your customer, if you don't have that data on your customer? Even just a few little pieces of it can paint a bigger picture than you might think. So,
I'll
and
give
I heard
you
you
a quick
mentioning,
plug too that you
yeah,
didn't ask
yeah,
for, but I would say that
yeah.
the change that I've seen on
Mhm,
exactly what you just said, Jen, is, let's be honest, there was a period where you'd switch point of sale to point of sale and
mhm,
you got a different type of pain effectively.
mhm.
And so
Oh yeah.
restaurants learned, why would I make technology switches? Because I got sold a bunch of stuff and yeah, they improved some of the problems I have, but I have a different type of pain now. And we're still in that mentality as an industry. One of the mistakes, I think, is that there are massive step function improvements in what's offered to restaurants now. The difference between a modern point of sale like Q and a legacy
Mhm,
point of sale is so night and day that restaurants
mhm,
have to throw away that idea that, hey, change will just bring me a different type of pain. It is a
mhm,
massive opportunity. And I think we're seeing the same thing in our world with loyalty. A lot of restaurants say, well, switching technology is not my problem. I just have to use it better. That's
mhm,
true. You should use it better. But it's
mhm,
also, switching technology is no longer as painful as it used to be. And it's not, oh, just a different type of pain. It is
mhm.
actually an unlock of a huge opportunity that they can't do today. That's a
Right.
mental switch that I think we're trying to make. And we're both helping the industry, or trying to help the industry get there.
Yeah, and ours is even harder because we're actually not just a POS like, we're not just a POS
For
company, we're
sure.
a platform, like, we're a like, that whole foundation I just talked about, the soil, one of the flowers that's growing over there is a POS. It's not in the center, and all your systems aren't spiraling around it like they used to be. It's over to this it's your side dish,
Mhm.
as I wrote in one of my blogs, right? And you can have loyalty, you can have all sorts of things growing in your garden, as long as they're using that same ecosystem underneath that's sharing the data and talking to each other.
I
So anyway, so we have a lot of some branding and messaging, work still to do around that, because people still do buy POS.
Mhm.
And so it's again, it's helping to folks to understand. We launched this unified commerce platform a couple years ago, and that's been a big education process. That's been in retail for years and years and years with the one single SKU unified commerce, right? But
Yep.
so we've kind of, been talking a lot about that. But anyway, I did have one more quick question, which is, you mentioned the teams and lean marketing teams. And I do hear this from the marketers in the restaurants a lot, which is, we don't have enough people to maintain and make this loyalty program work for us. Like, it takes 2 or 3 or 4 people, and we don't have the staff for that. Do you see like best practices, like on your system, even, with, say multi-location chains? How many marketers do you need to make Thanx work for you?
Less than a full-time person.
Really?
We are focused on leaning into automations that
Mm-hmm.
you arrive at through A/B testing. So
Hmm.
you're not going to know what works. You're going to have to test some things. And there is some work to be done there. But
Hmm.
once you find what's driving behavior, you can create those automations and then they run. And that has been a
Hmm.
big element of what we built. One of the core principles in everything we build is a recognition that our users are lean teams. It has been the case with some of the legacy loyalty programs that they'll sell you a technology platform and they'll sell you a gigantic services component just to
Yeah.
use the technology platform. That is great. I think there is a role for our agency partners. There's a role for our customer success team. But at the end of the day, all of that's too difficult unless you can run a program without having to dedicate a whole team to it. And so that's been our MO. Many
Yeah.
brands have larger marketing teams, and loyalty is a key element of that. And we're actually seeing more resources move into customer retention and engagement and away from acquisition, which I think is a welcome trend in the industry. But technology doesn't work if you've got to have a whole team of people running it. And
Yeah.
by the way, the turnover in HQs and people jumping is not quite as difficult as it is in restaurants, but it's real. There's a lot of change happening in the industry. That makes it
Yeah.
hard if your technology is dependent on a team of experienced people that know that exact solution.
Right. Particularly if they need to be trained exactly on like, how different is your system from all the other systems? Like how long does it take to learn things? Is this
Yep.
something they can pick up quickly or, yeah.
We
So
pride ourselves on satisfaction scores around our
mhm,
implementation and our
mhm,
customers talking about Thanx is easier to use than other
mhm.
things I've used. That's what we pride ourselves on. And it's out of necessity. Marketing teams are not going to
Awesome.
get bigger.
I feel like I need to get a demo now, Zach. I'm like, I haven't really seen this in action.
Well, we
Okay, well,
should
we'll
do
we'll,
that.
we'll handle that. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that later. So this has been a really interesting, super enlightening conversation for me, Zach. I really appreciate your time. I'm so glad we had a chance to do this. Hopefully, our audience got something out of this as well. But thank you so much for helping to shepherd the restaurant industry forward, for being a fantastic reinvention spokesperson. And I wish you a wonderful day and hope to see you soon.
This was great. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Restaurants Reinvented. This show is brought to you by Q, a restaurant tech company paving a brighter future for operators with the industry's first unified commerce platform. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow Restaurants Reinvented in your favorite podcast app or visit qbeyond.com, that's QUBEYOND.com /podcast to find all of your latest episodes.